Hey, it's Matt from Hidden Machine here, digitally. Last month we brought you the first volume of the Hidden Machine demo disc. This time around I played a lot more demos and compiled them here on this very compact disc for you to browse through, and that's kind of a metaphor. It's not really a demo disc, but we're presenting it as such. Here's a bunch of new demos, some old demos that are free right now for you to check out. Let's get into it.
9 Souls.
9 Souls is an action platformer that has Souls-like combat and a really striking hand-drawn animation style. You play as a stoic, cat-like protagonist who can slash, dash, and use magic. The platforming here is a lot of fun, and you can grab ledges and run up some walls. The whole thing feels really tight and well constructed. The demo introduces the game's story and allows you to play through an opening stage as well as a boss fight. I'm really not too good at games like this, so it took me about an hour to get through, but if you're more skilled at dodging and parrying in these sorts of Souls-like action games, then you'll likely get through it a bit quicker. The combat is as tight as the platforming, and it's super violent, with enemies often being reduced to big meaty chunks of gore. There's a skill tree and hints at other attacks and spells yet to be unlocked, and I found the story being set up here to be pretty intriguing. The game has what it refers to as a Dao-punk visual style, mixing the cyberpunk aesthetic with Taoism and Far Eastern mythology. 9 Souls is currently set to release in the second quarter of next year, but the demo is available now on Steam.
Fashion Police Squad.
Fashion Police Squad is an old-school influenced FPS that is all about fashion. You take on the role of Sergeant Drez, who, in his capacity as a member of the Fashion Police Squad, works to rid the world of fashion crimes. In the demo, you play through several missions and a boss fight. You use your arsenal of fashion-related weaponry to correct the behavior of a variety of different fashion criminals. Ill-fitting suits, drab color palettes, exposed buttocks, no fashion crime is safe from the long arm of the fashion law. Different enemies in the game are vulnerable to different weapon types, which adds a really fun pacing to the combat. In addition to shotgun and machine gun style weapons, you also have a belt that acts as a melee weapon and has a really satisfying sound effect. The belt doubles as a sort of grappling hook that you'll use in different platforming sections. This game is packed with jokes and references and is really well written. The whole thing is just super fun.
Apocalyptic Vibes.
Apocalyptic Vibes does exactly what it says on the tin. Traverse a desolate, bleak, and violent wasteland in this GZ Doom shooter. Humanity's heyday has come and gone, and you're left to fend for yourself in what's left of civilization. This game is dark and lonely. You will run into some other humans here and there, but most of them will be pretty intent on filling you with buckshot. The game has a very strong atmosphere, with sprawling stretches of debris and life-threatening dangers at every turn. Radiation will permanently decrease your stamina, and enemies will take you out in just a few shots. It's a brutal and unforgiving experience. I had a great time exploring this world, although I did face a couple of game-breaking bugs during my time with the demo. Apocalyptic Vibes is due to come out later this fall, so hopefully everything can be patched up by then.
Cult of the Lamb.
Devolver Digital has been consistently publishing strong, stylish, and unique indie titles for years now, and Cult of the Lamb continues that tradition. This game combines top-down, roguelike combat that sort of reminds me of Death's Door, with settlement building and survival mechanics. You are the eponymous lamb, building your cult member by member, propelled forward by an otherworldly bloodlust. The demo has a really great look that combines 2D and 3D elements to make something that really stands out, and the combat is fast and intuitive while providing a substantial challenge. This has all the fun upgrades, weapons, and items that you'd expect in a roguelike game, but combining all that with foraging for supplies for your settlement makes for a very addicting and refreshing gameplay loop. This one drops in August, and I think it's going to be a pretty big hit.
Hellscreen.
Have you ever wanted to have eyes in the back of your head? If so, then Hellscreen might just be the game for you. Initially, this game was very confusing for me. I mean, just look at it. In Hellscreen, you use your left mouse button to shoot forward and your right mouse button to shoot backward. The top screen acts like a rear view mirror, giving the game a sort of FOV nightmare vibe. After a little while, the setup did become somewhat intuitive for me. However, even after finishing the demo, I still wasn't really finding myself being able to take full advantage of all of the game's mechanics. For example, there's a few different damage multipliers in the game, like double damage while moving forward, or quad damage while moving forward and shooting backward. But I was always too disoriented to really maximize these tactics. Some enemies require you to shoot backward at them, and some areas of the game require you to use your rear view mirror to navigate, meaning you'll feel like you're walking around backward. Like I said, it's confusing, but I still had a lot of fun figuring it all out. In the demo, you're looking for soul cores, which are used to enter different portals to different maps, and in these maps you'll find soul shards, with 6 shards forming one core. The demo ends in a big boss fight, and overall it's a pretty interesting experience. I'm curious to see how these ideas will carry over into a full-length game. I feel like this one has potential to be pretty divisive, but I'd really recommend giving it a try.
Signalis.
I'm kinda unsure how to pronounce this one, but I think it's Signalis, because that's how Vsauce said it, so
this game is called Signalis.
I'm gonna go with Signalis. This game is clearly influenced by Resident Evil, as in the first Resident Evil game, as well as Metal Gear and Metal Gear Solid. This demo feels old and new at the same time, and it delivers a very particular brand of survival horror. There's a weird sci-fi bend to the whole thing, which evokes a whole other set of influences. Despite obviously taking some things from other games and series, Signalis does immediately carve a strong identity for itself. Gameplay-wise, you're pretty much getting what you'd expect from this sort of top-down, old-school survival horror format, but the story being set up in this demo looks to be a very engaging mystery, as our protagonist seeks to find a lost partner, and, as the game's Steam page puts it, her lost dreams. I don't have too much more to say about this one, and I'm hoping that the footage here just speaks for itself. If you like old school survival horror, then you definitely need to give this one a go.
Retchid.
Imagine you're trapped on a space station where it appears that everyone has either died or been turned into some sort of horrific monster. It's not the most original premise, but it's worked in the past, and it works for Retchid. This demo is a bit rough around the edges, especially in terms of animations, but I found it to be very compelling nonetheless. It should be obvious what you're getting here. It's a horror-infused sci-fi FPS game. It's all pretty standard stuff, but the atmosphere, pacing, and level design are really strong in this demo. You'll be able to see this game's influences from a mile away, but it takes the foundations laid down by titles like Doom or Dead Space and uses them to create a really compelling experience that has me super excited to see how the rest of the game develops. Supplice is the French word for torture. Based on that title, when I booted up this demo, I was expecting something pretty brutal, and I got it. I was only a few seconds into the game when I was getting my shit pushed in by a bunch of aggressive, zombie-like soldiers. Those opening moments let me know what I was in for, which is basically a very well-made and fairly challenging retro FPS that takes a lot from Doom. In fact, the game features contributions from a veritable who's who of the Doom modding scene, and it shows. Every part of this game, from the visuals to the level design, character design, weapons, and music, all feel very polished and striking. This feels like a DOS-era shooter, but it's so refined and so fresh at the same time. The demo features 2 sizable levels, and I spent over an hour exploring just the first one. There's a lot to see and do here, with plenty of secrets to uncover, and a pretty interesting story as well. I found the combat in this game to be super satisfying. The sound effects are big and chunky, and enemies put up a good fight without ever feeling cheap. My favorite weapon has to be this rotary shotgun. This thing rules. The Supplice demo offers so much content and it has me super pumped on the full release of the game. Don't sleep on this one.
Coven.
With Coven,
It's pronounced Coven, man. What else could it be pronounced?
Coven, that's the proper pronunciation.
No. Coven. No. Coven sounds like oven, man, and that's just.
we've got another retro FPS game, and this one takes some influences from Blood and Hexen. You wake up in a grave and go to town on this town. The first episode in the demo here is set in the 1600s, and you're playing as a girl who was wrongfully accused of and executed for witchcraft. You have the ability to explode enemies into gibs that you can then feast on, testicles and all. The combat here has a very particular pacing, at least in this first episode. You have a sword and shield, and your weapons do deteriorate over time. Magic can be used to perform spells like this one that slows things down for a moment. Every single strike and blow in this game feels huge, and it forced me to be tactical in how I approached every encounter. I couldn't just go blindly gunning or stabbing into every fight. The game promises to have each level set in a different time period, and I'm really excited to see how that pans out. Coven is brutal and challenging, but very rewarding. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this one.
Gloomwood.
Gloomwood asks the question, what if Thief, but with guns? Developed by Dylan Rogers and David Szymanski, Gloomwood is an upcoming game from New Blood Interactive. And as such, there's already a ton of coverage on this game. It's pretty highly anticipated. The game will be entering early access later this summer, but for now, a pre-alpha demo is available. Like I said, a lot of other people are already discussing this game, but as someone who played a lot of Thief, and I mean the first Thief game back when it dropped in the late 90s, I feel that Gloomwood does a great job at capturing some of the more memorable elements of that game and recontextualizing them into a whole new setting. I tend to be pretty awful at most stealth games, but Gloomwood manages to be fun and accessible. For me, this one is living up to all the hype so far, and is on course to be another awesome installment in the New Blood library.
Messed up!
Slayers X, Terminal Aftermath, Vengance of the Slayer.
The full title of this game is Slayers X, Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer. The game purports to have been started back in 1998 and is now being finished here in 2022. The demo perfectly captures and satirizes the bombastic, over-the-top, attitude-driven style that was overly prevalent in the mid to late 90s. I found the game's writing and presentation to be genuinely hilarious, and the gameplay is also a lot of fun. You're one of the X-Slayers, a team of heroes from the Slayers X comic book. It's not that complicated, and if you're wondering what the X stands for, well, it's there because X's look cool. I don't want to say too much about this one because the demo is pretty short and I don't really want to spoil anything, but let me put it like this. Slayers X is aiming to be the most awesome game ever made, and from the looks of this demo, it's likely to succeed.
Biocrisis, return to the lab.
Biocrisis Return to the Lab is the aptly named sequel to 2020's Biocrisis. That game is a light gun style corridor shooter that's reminiscent of single screen, skill-based arcade games. It's pretty difficult and has a very frantic pace. It only costs $3, which I feel is appropriate for the game's length, as a session with it can be successfully completed in just a few minutes. Biocrisis Return to the Lab greatly expands on the first game and is an on-rails light gun shooter in the style of classics like Area 51 and House of the Dead. The demo gives us a brief level and a boss battle, but it's more than enough to prove that this game is going to be a lot of fun. I played through this demo with a Sinden light gun, but I found that it's also a lot of fun to play with a keyboard and mouse.
Moonscars.
Taking cues from other Dark Souls-influenced side-scrollers like Blasphemous, Moonscars feels familiar in many ways, but also presents a cryptic and mysterious world to explore with some really unique mechanics. The demo features beautifully fluid animations that feel like they fall somewhere between pixel art and an oil painting. The combat feels refined and responsive, and overall the game plays really nicely. As for the story, I have to be honest, I barely understand what's going on here. You play as Irma, who is looking for the sculptor. I'm sure there's some sort of biblical allegory or metaphor going on here, but it's all a bit vague to me. For instance, at one point in the demo, you'll have to sacrifice yourself in order to open up a fast travel point. In order to do that, you need to sacrifice your current mold, and with that you lose a special ability. Your old mold, and I mean mold like a mold for a sculpture, it turns into an evil doppelganger, which you'll then have to defeat if you want to regain that special ability. There's something going on here with clay and the sculptor, and some obvious biblical references can be inferred, but things are left intentionally vague because Moonscars has the type of story that will reveal itself piece by piece as you progress through the game. I would definitely put this one in more of a hardcore category in terms of difficulty and what it demands from a player, but if you're into the Souls-like genre, especially the side-scrolling stuff, I think you have to play this demo.